going to call the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Novak,
Here.
Member Dodson,
Here.
Member Erb,
Here.
Member Henderson.
I'm here, thank you.
Oh, good. Member Maloney,
Here.
Member Schutte,
Here.
ex officio Member Rosenberg. A quorum's present.
Thank you. We're now on agenda item number 3, which is an opportunity for public comment. Do I have any public comment? Ms. Norman? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Kelly Norman for the record. I just want to recognize and celebrate on February 26, 2003, Governor Kenny Gwynn confirmed CAMPO's MPO status 20 years ago. CAMPO is 20 years old this month. And I wanted to thank the current board members and past board members for your interest, insight, and participation in the MPO, and also the past and current transportation managers, Patrick Pittenger, Lucia Maloney, Chris Martinovich, and I'm very proud to be a part of this organization. Thank you.
Gosh, it's hard to, where does 20 years go? But we'll move on from that because it goes really quick. Do I have any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is for possible action for approval of our minutes of January 11th, 2023. Does any member see any corrections? Oh,
I've got one.
okay. Mr. Novak.
On page 8 of the packet, under the 6B discussion, that says Transportation Improvement Plan. That really should be Transportation Improvement Program. I don't know what we actually
Yep.
said, but the tip is a program, not a plan.
Page 8.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The tip, the P is actually program, not plan.
Yep.
The title. Do I have any other corrections? Ms. Maloney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question that crossed my mind. In the minutes, and they may be fine, I wasn't sure. It says Vice Chairperson Schutte, and she was Vice Chair at the beginning of the meeting, but in the first item, we elected Member Novak. And so I just wanted to confirm that that was listed correctly.
At the time of the roll call, she was the vice, and so she'll reflect in the future ones, right?
Great.
Perfect, thank you. Anybody else? I'm so glad you guys actually read these. I am so proud of us, right? There's no such thing as a rubber stamp in this group. So I will accept a motion for approval with the correction noted.
I'll move to approve
Member
the minutes
Novak?
as amended.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimous. Mr. Henderson, I'm assuming that was a yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to move on to agenda item 5A, which is just a discussion item and presentation by the Nevada Department of Transportation on the Wrong Way Driver System Project and the Advanced Signal Warning System. Mr. Schilling, are you here to present today?
Yes. Is it, do you see?
It's green. Do you want to try the other microphone? Once in a while. We'll see if the other one will pick you up. That other one might need a battery.
There we go. Now I see
Oh.
it. Yeah.
Yep,
Big
batteries.
difference. So good afternoon again. So yeah, I'm going to walk through the department's wrong way driver systems and the advanced signal warning systems programs and provide an update on that. There you go. Okay. So bear with me. There's quite a few slides here. So I'm going to talk first on the wrong-way driver systems. I'm going to give you guys a program overview, where we went with the interim approval requesting from the MTCD team with the FHWA, our reporting requirements that were part of that. And then in simultaneous, we were doing a data-driven approach to go forward with the program implementation. That's what you guys are probably more concerned about with the freeway that's coming up here. So part of the overview, a little bit of the history. Nationally, fatal deaths on our freeways are one of the most significant with wrong-way drivers. So they're about 1% on average nationally. And within the state of Nevada, this was like up into around 2018, there was 5 to 6 on average deaths per year on our freeway system. So it was about 2% of our state fatalities. So that's where we recognize the need to start going forward and put something out there to kind of address this issue. Yeah, just with wrong-way drivers. So the first thing that we needed to do, because this was a request for experimentation, is to go forward and obtain that, for an interim approval through the MUTCD team. So we put that request in 2016. That first request was most of the areas north on 395, and I'll show you where we got that implementation plan first requested. Then we started looking at trying to do a systemic approach. We wanted to do this statewide because we recognize the need of this. It's on all interchanges, and you don't know where they're really going to occur. So we did that. However, FHWA was not granting a statewide system, a systemic approach. So we had to do a modification. We got that approval back in 2020 for some additional routes. This was the original route. So most everything on 395 north of the Spaghetti Bowl to the state line. So that's what was originally requested. On the left, what you'll see there is the additional sites that were approved. So we got I-80 from state line to Keystone. So there was a total of 36 interchanges that were in that original request. There was one that was on there previously, which you'll see on down south, US 95 Durango. That was just infrastructure only. So that was what we placed on that in the southern region. Moving forward, as part of the reporting requirements, that's what you have to do as part of these interim approvals. So it's a semi-annual report that we had to do. So we had to do 6 of these, and that began in June of 2020. We just completed our final report. So that's good news on that side of it. Out of that report, what you'll see, there was 216 wrong-way driver events that we observed. So we put out there what we call an ITS solution that were on these 36 ramps. So we were able to confirm 216 wrong-way driver events, and out of those, 83% of those, 84% of those were confirmed turnarounds. So that's the success rate that we had out of those implementations. So it's a really high success rate. 9 that we were not aware where they went, but they were confirmed that they did make it on mainline. The others were just not sure what goes on with these types of events. But we have a lot more data that's associated with it too, not just nighttime, where they occurred and everything else. So simultaneously, what we were doing is developing a data-driven approach. So we were working with a service provider. It's Kimley Horn that was working with us. We want to analyze every one of those events. We wanted to look at the crashes, the severity, the citations that are associated with it, any risk factors, the geometry, what type of interchange. Is it just a typical tight diamond, parclo, clover leaves, those types of things, and then start looking at strategies moving forward with what we can do to implement to help reduce these types of events.
Can I ask a quick
Sure.
question? So when you say 9% were confirmed mainline entries, does that mean they got on?
They got on the main line,
Okay.
and then after that, we don't know where they go.
Okay.
So we know for a fact that they made it on mainline, but luckily, we don't have any reports where they
Of a-
actually ended up into
Okay.
A wreck.
a wreck. Yeah.
That's
So, but
right,
typically,
no wreck.
when these end up in a crash, they are very severe, So the way we looked at it now is we're starting to do our data-driven approach. We broke it up into 3 regions. So we have the Las Vegas and surrounding area, the Reno Sparks surrounding area, and then the rest of the state as a rural nature area. There's 3 levels of recommendation out of this data-driven approach that we're providing. So level 1 is what we call your standard MUTCD package that you see on every ramp as you start to get on board. So you'll have that package with the same pavement markings, the delineators, and that type of thing. Then we identified and then enhanced. It's where we kind of improve that level 1. We add additional signage, which is typically like an oversized sign, pavement markings, there were retroreflective markers on the backside of the signs, so you see the red, that type of thing, so that it adds that what we call conspicuity, that extra level of awareness. And then level 3 is ITS, that's the technology solution. So there was 489 interchanges throughout the state that we observed, and then we put them into these level 1, level 2, and level 3. So now moving forward though, because FHWA and the METCD team is no longer accepting the interim approval for what you used to see as the red RFBs, those rectangular style, similar to the pedestrian yellow. So those are the ones that we first put out there. Now you have to be compliant. So what you will see coming forward on this project here on 580 is what we call that red beacon, the 1W1C, which is a one-way, one color. So you'll see those above and below the wrong way sign. The other approved method is what they call that white LED border, the one on the other side. That is something we elected not to go forward with because we wanted to stay red. That's a little bit more in line with the wrong way sign. So that's what you'll see on these interchanges coming forward. And then part of the program implementation, little correction on that one there. 3763 was the original contract that came through here. I think that was in 2019, so that's why we have the infrastructures in place. So we tried to do a systemic approach, but FHWA came back and said, no, hold back. So the infrastructure's in place. The contract that's going out there now is 3938. That's the one that's going to be going out there and doing the installation of the technology systems. So that's underway. The notice to proceed was this January. They have like 40 working days, so you'll see them at Fairview, US 50, College Parkway, Arrowhead, and then on North Carson Street. So that's where you'll see wrong-way driver implementations. We're also working to do future, as like I was saying, as part of our implementation plan, figuring out how we can scope and get those into programs and moving those forward. So there's a few of them that are already on there. There's previous packages that have the older systems, like I was showing you in the original request. So we're going to come back because we've updated our technology and we want to improve those. So even though they're at 84%, we're trying to improve that so you don't have as many false calls, that type of thing, when you're seeing wrong-way driver events. So those are a lot of the projects that are moving forward. So we're going to continue that level 1, 2, 3 strategies moving forward.
Can I
Now
ask you a question just on the wrong-way driver? Do you think that the reason for the wrong-way driver is mostly design? So like if
No.
I'm getting off on Moana, to me, that's one of the weirdest.
We looked at
I
a
feel like
lot
I'm on the
of,
wrong side of the road, but they want
a
me
lot
on
of
the wrong side.
factors, age, land use, geometry type, daytime, nighttime. We took into all of those consideration and we came up with what we call a crash score. And then we also included the cost associated with the level 1, 2s, and 3s. And that's how we put them into our implementation plan. So we do take that into consideration with the geometry if it's confusing to the motorist.
Right.
And that type of thing, and try to come up with what is really that next level of prioritization, you know, to get them out there, basically, especially on the crash score. So if that has one of higher importance, we want to go out there and try to get those implemented first.
Okay, I just wondered if something stood out that
not
as to
on,
why we have wrong-way drivers.
Yeah,
What's
there's a
the-
lot of factors that go into it. You know, same thing with, you know, I hate to say it, what is the generator, right? You know, with the land use on those too. So we took those into consideration. You got to be careful in how you do those, but you know, those are considered into our score overall though too. Nighttime, geometry of that ramp, you know, is it confusing to the motorist? Does it look
Right.
too much of a straight line? You know, there's several of them that have that as confusing to the motorist.
Okay.
So when you speak of land use, you're
Right.
talking about the layout of the lane?
Not so much the layout of the lane, but where it is within, say, the urban to rural environment,
Okay.
the type of land use that's
Right.
associated with it. So if they're coming out of, a generator, say it's a casino, that type of environment, where are they at in the rural nature? Is it just confusing on that
Okay.
lane use there or land use there?
Thank you.
Yeah, you got to take a look at all of those different approaches, in that mitigation to come up with that score.
Interesting.
It's a pretty intense score when you start working it through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rod?
Yes, sir.
A question. Is there anybody else notified when these detections are made?
Yeah. So
State police or?
correct. So what we've implemented is a protocol with our DMS messaging as well, and how that there's a distribution list is once the TMC, the Traffic Management Center, gets a confirmation on those. So the way we've established that is pretty much like a 10-mile bubble around, because you don't know where they're going. So we'll implement, wrong way driver detected, stay alert, that kind of messaging, so that goes through DPS and everybody else. So we put that out on our 511 system. And like I was saying, we do that like in a 10-mile bubble is how we do that until we get confirmation again, from your state police or something. Hopefully they've been corrected, or something like that.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
The next system I'm going to talk about that you guys may be aware of is our statewide advanced signal warning systems. And I'll go through this one too. I'll talk a little bit about the overview. I'm going to focus mostly in the area that you guys are looking at, which is, what we call our District 2 South, mostly here in the Gardnerville, Carson area. Talk about the different types of what we call ASWAS, Advanced Signal Warning Systems. We did an evaluation, came up with some guidelines, and then I'll talk to you about where we're at with the update on this program overall. So the whole goal, and we've done a few presentations, we're complete with this, just FYI, with the whole advanced signal warning systems, but we wanted to align with the most current MUTCD and the guidelines associated with that. So really when you look at that, it's really developing a unified approach that's really statewide, it's uniform, consistent to all of the drivers when they come into an advanced signal warning system, and really to promote driver behavior and more safety associated with that. So the systems that you guys are mostly aware of when you were seeing these out here in the area is the prepare to stop when flashing. So that's what we call an active advanced signal warning system. Now the sign up above is is just the signal ahead warning sign. So there's the static system, just like I was saying there, it's just the signal warning ahead. That's just the static. There's a passive system where you see the yellow beacons that simultaneously flash all the time. So that's what we call a passive system. The active is where you see those on the onset of yellow. Those are the ones where you typically have seen throughout the valley. And those are best used, like I was saying, where you have limited sight distance. It's usually like what we're calling with heavy truck traffic, winter conditions, those types of things, like coming down Spooner. It's a prime example. Or where you got a high-speed facility through the valley in 395, Arrowhead, or not Arrowhead, but Johnson, Stephanie, and those out through there. So what we did is we developed a new set of guidelines. We worked with, an on-call service provider to help us do some research, look at other best practices, other states and what they're doing. We wanted to make sure that we did our update that was in conformance, like I was saying, with the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That's the 2009 edition. Our previous guidelines was really back in the 90s, so we wanted to make sure that we were up to date and in alignment with that. So we looked at all of the locations throughout the state, conducted field reviews, we did site-specific on each of these to come up with our recommendations. So when we looked at this, the study also took into consideration when we were going to be able to remove the actives and then come up with the appropriate system that's going to be out there. The idea here is to really promote better driver behavior, like we were talking about. Aim to reduce your red light running. Speeding was one of the biggest factors that we've seen with this. And then again, vehicles running red lights result in more than 200,000 people being injured and approximately 900 deaths alone just nationwide for red light running. Some of it only required just signal timing modifications. So that was another thing that we took into consideration too when we were going out there. Want to make sure that everybody understands that the preemption did not change. That's for the emergency vehicles. So there was questions in that. Would that remove that? Never did. So the signal stays the same. The advanced signal warning system's a different operation. So signal preemption still stays the same, and they always have that priority. So again, back to the updates, we wanted to make sure that we were compliant, which we did, and then anything going forward would also follow our guidelines. So the locations that you guys are mostly concerned with, this was a project that we did within our District 2 South. Now this is all complete. You can see most of the locations where we were either going to keep that system, like I was saying, you're going to see it at, let's see, the signal removals where the signal remains, but the advanced signal warning signs are going to be changing. Topsy, you can see those change, Sunridge, Moeller, Arrowhead, Deer Run. So if you guys, they're already out there. You've been driving them for some time now. Modified timing, you can see where we did that at Stephanie Johnson Airport. Those stayed the same. That's what I wanted you guys to remember on those. Waterloo and Mottsville, and same thing at Zephyr Cove. And then where we converted to passive, that's where I was talking about the 24/7. That's where you'll see those. We're in the direction of those at Deerhead in the westbound, Micah, northbound, east-westbound at Waterloo, Mottsville, and then the northbound at Muller. And then where we modified to static, you can see those there at 395 Micah and Elks Point. So those been in place for well over a year now with these implementations. So the guidelines we completed in 2020, the decommissioning in the entire state has been completed, like I was saying back in 2022. What we're doing right now is we're monitoring all of these systems statewide. The last one that we completed was probably, it's getting close to, it was late last fall. It was up north in the Pyramid, Sparks, those areas. So what we're doing right now is we're monitoring. We did a study. We utilized the University of Nevada, Reno to assist us using LiDAR to look at these and how well they're performing, the before and afters with like the near crashes, the speeds associated with them. So that's part of our decommissioning plan is we'll follow up with those with another 1 year and a 3-year as well, just to look at the crashes, speeds associated with it too. Currently, what I will mention on it as part of the study, what we've recognized though with the LiDAR studies in the sites that we're looking at, we're seeing about a 3 to 7 mile an hour reduction in speed at the stop bar where we've converted these systems. So it is improving on that side, and to date, we've had 0 crashes reported. So we're seeing the driver behavior change. It's been a hard one to get there though. So
Does
that
any
is my
members have any
presentation.
questions?
Rod, the timing modification, that's primarily the length of the yellow?
That's just the yellow time, the dilemma zone area. That's all it is. So we, as we updated our guidelines too, Greg, we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with the ITE standard on that, for the yellow time. So we usually, everything that we've done too is we work with the local agencies too. So we go out there because they do the operations and maintenance, and we want to make sure that, that signal timing's in coordination too.
Right, okay, well, good.
Yeah.
You guys have improved on all the things I put in. It's
getting
okay,
there.
you did better. Thanks.
We're getting there.
Member Maloney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation. Thank you, Rod. This was really interesting. And I do want to, I think, give some credit to James Jacklett and the control systems team in Carson City that oversees the 4-county area. I know there were a lot of discussions for
was.
many years on this, and I think this is a great example of NDOT and specifically your coordination with the locals. Really great example of that. So thanks for all your
Yeah.
work there. It's pretty tremendous.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would be interested in, after the monitoring, if there are any findings. I know you're really busy, but it would be great to hear kind of the after, in a year or so.
Share the report.
I at least would be curious. Yeah, maybe you share with
We,
Chris or
we will
something.
share that because there's been a lot of public interest, mostly up north, I'll be honest with that, so a lot of the commissioners up north want to see that anecdotal information. They want to know that for fact. So that's why we use the university to go out there and do these after studies and use LiDAR, because it's really amazing how accurate that can be. So yes, I will gladly share it. What we're trying to do is like the yellow time, like Greg was talking about. I want to confirm that. I want to confirm red light running and then also the crashes associated before we put the public, out with that report. So we're getting close.
Really fantastic work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other member have a comment? Is there any public comment on this item? None? Okay, thank you so very much. We really look forward to the results.
You bet. Thank you.
We're going to move on then to agenda item 5B, which is for action regarding CAMPO's proposed regional transportation improvement program for federal fiscal years 2023 to 2026. Ms. Norman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kelly Norman, Transportation Planner. The CAMPO Transportation Improvement Program for federal fiscal years 2023 through 2026 is a federally required prioritized list of fiscally constrained projects. With this TIP adoption, staff reviewed and updated all project prioritization criteria from federal, state, and CAMPO documents and agencies to update the CAMPO project prioritization methodology. CAMPO met with partner agencies from Douglas, Lyon, and Carson City and requested input from the Jack Transit Agency and the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California. In addition, the TIP is a living document and will be amended at regular intervals as needed. Adoption of this TIP, classified as Action 23-01, includes 25 projects. New projects listed in the TIP include new 5307, 5310, and 5339 FTA grants on packet pages 45, 46, 47. Design for the Carson City Jump Around Carson Transit Center on packet page 44. The Roop Street capacity improvements from Washington to Musser on packet page 40. The North Lampa multi-use path adjacent to I-580 from Modoc Court to the highway on packet page 43. The Douglas County-led Johnson Lane reconstruction project, which includes full pavement reconstruction of Johnson Lane from Hayborn Road to Vicky Lane on packet page 51. The NDOT-led US 50 preservation project east of Dayton from Fortune Drive to 6 Mile Canyon on packet page 45, and the NDOT-led US 50 Douglas County Carson City Spooner Summit preservation project on packet page 49. Finally, the District 5 North Carson Complete Streets project between William Street North to Medical Parkway on packet page 32. Following the formal adoption by CAMPO, this TIP will be submitted to NDOT, the Federal Highway Administration, and the Federal Transit Administration for approval. TIP amendments require a 14-day public comment period as described in CAMPO's public participation plan. The public comment period for this action opened on December 24th, 2022, and ended on January 9th, 2023. No public comment was received. However, adjustments have been made based on comments and coordination from local member agencies. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Does any member have a question? Go ahead, Vice Chair. Hey, that keeps it fun.
Been at it 20 years, you know?
Yeah, 20 years, you know.
I was looking, and I think overall this is good, and, there was some stuff on 50 or 395 South that were in the plan or in the list of projects, but I know you've got some corridor studies coming to figure out what really needs to be done in those, so I can see waiting on that. But there's a couple that I really wasn't sure about that just seemed to move up from the unfunded to the funded now. So there was the one, that South Carson multi-use path connector, the new one to connect to Edmonds.
Yes.
That was like 2031 to 2050. I mean, it's a great project. I just wondering why it moved up and other things didn't go.
Know what packet page you're on, please?
Oh, okay, hold on, I'll find it.
Just so those, in case we have people listening, which I
Yeah.
know this is riveting, so
The,
there
the-
must be.
Packet page 42.
Thank you.
So the South Carson multi-use path connector is an extension of another multi-use path project, the freeway multi-use path to Edmonds Sports Complex. We have an idea of applying for TAP funds for this project and identified it in the tip.
I'll build on to what Kelly had mentioned. I think she mentioned early on in the presentation about CAMPO's prioritization process. And so we went through all of our projects that were in the former tip. We took a look at those projects in our regional transportation plan. And we kind of took a look at, okay, based on our changing area and project prioritization processes, specifically looking at the One Nevada process and how they go through prioritizing projects, we want to be consistent and similar with that whole process. So we kind of took a look at all of our projects, and some of the projects sort of shifted in that through that prioritization process. And this is one of those projects that sort of moved up the list when we run through and coordinate that, looking at all of our funding sources and items like that.
I saw the other one that moved up was that Ash Canyon Road reconstruction for $14 million. But we're not moving up the Ormsby Boulevard connector. It's in the same general neighborhood that would help address traffic flow in that area. And that's only, according to this, 1.2 million. And I'm going, I don't know about that.
Yeah, the Ash Canyon project is really targeting to be another FLAP project. That's our goal on that one. We've had successful implementation with previous FLAP grants, that Sierra Vista Lane, Kings Canyon, and so that's sort of the next target for the connection to federal lands and providing that access to the federal lands program. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to keep it on that list in case that call for projects comes out. We're looking at, thinking about what is that project going to take. Let's keep the door open for that in the future. Should that grant project or that grant call for projects come forward, we have one ready to move forward.
All right, that helps explain, but again.
Well, I think it's truly important, even for the public, to recognize it doesn't truly mean this project is of a higher priority. It's based upon the constraint of the funding sources. So within the appropriate funding sources, these are our priorities. And so I think it's good to stress that to the public, because I'm constantly, well, why did you fix that? This road's in far worse shape, or this or that. Well, because I don't have the general money for that type of project, but like you said, we can get some flat money that
Exactly.
has been very, very constructive
Yes.
and done some really nice projects. But I think it's important, and thank you, Greg, that we put that on the record so the public understands. Oftentimes your priorities are based upon what money is coming down the center for us to apply for, and we want it in the plan so that we can apply for it.
Correct.
And so,
Right.
because it's faster than trying to get amendments if we can.
Right, and I
guess
think
that's part
the
of
other
it.
key is you do this often enough, right? There's other projects we know should go, like, Vista Grande, well, they're not ready yet, right?
Right.
So when they're ready, it'll come along, so, fine,
Right.
thank you.
Does any other member have a question or comment? Ms.
Madam
Maloney?
Chair?
Oh, yes, Mr. Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to talk about the project that's on packet page 52,
52.
which is the one in, Lyon County.
Okay.
We appreciate what has been done already with the installation of, lights and the horse fencing. But this project, if there's any way possible, we need to move this project up faster than fiscal year 2026. And I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. At 28 million, if that comes, we will. That price is big. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Miss Maloney? Oh, sorry. Just looking down the line.
Just a general comment that, unless you're a super dork like me and Vice Chair Novak, you don't always appreciate the nuance of the tip. When the public wants to know why we're spending money and where we're spending it, this is the document.
Yep.
And the updates to the text, some of the nuances of the way the projects were described, the coordination with NDOT to get those projects in here that have never been in Campo's tip. This document's better than it's ever been. You guys did a really good job.
Good. Member Shooty?
Thank you. On packet page 33, the Winnie Lane to Mountain Street, and it's wonderful to see the project cost decreasing, and it's quite significant. What was the decrease, or?
Well, as I understand it, the range of the project decreased.
Okay.
I think it was going to go all the way to Ormsby and decreased in length.
Okay.
And so we reduced the price and the scope of
All
that
right.
project.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay. Is there any public comment? Come on up. No, absolutely. Just state
Yeah.
your name for the record and then go ahead.
My name's Jediah Holler. I was wondering, I don't have a packet, I showed up a little bit late, but could you go into more detail about how the development of these project plans and the approval process works in coordination with the local agencies between the state government and the federal government? And also how the funding process works and how that's allocated a little bit.
Sure. Ms. Norman, do you want to give just a high-level process from how do we get items into the tip? And then how is that tip utilized up through the state level, the federal level? Just to give a brief overview of this, please.
Just to give you a high-level summary, in order for any project to be eligible to be put into the tip, it first has to be in the Regional Transportation Plan 2050. And so first it has to be within that document. And then we take the projects within that document and prioritize based on the number of factors and objectives from the federal government, from the planning objectives from the federal government, the state government, and our own CAMPO documents. And then we use all of that information to prioritize certain projects, and then we have to say, okay, so these are the projects that prioritize high. Which are the projects that we can actually feasibly do within the next 4 years? And so then we find and identify funding to support those projects, and we have to scope out those projects. We have to understand what is involved in those projects in order to then find funding for them. There are prescribed funding choices for an MPO to program into the tip. And we
what does
work
that mean?
with...
Let's try this a little bit different. Let's try a different level. So what really happens in the beginning as we sit as this board or a panel and we look at everything that's going on in the CAMPO area, the region, right? So there's some in Douglas County, Mr. Henderson from Lyon County. And so that's a planning organization that's been recognized. Okay, and so we have to make a plan. And so we take public comment and all of our staff experts telling us what are projects that we need. What do we need to do for the next 30 years? And so that's that big planning document that's happening. And so people such as yourself, Muscle Powered is a big one that'll come in and say, we'd really like bike lanes or more pathways or this road should be 3-lane, or this road should be 2-lane. Lots and lots of things come into play. And so this planning organization will create the big plan that Miss Norman was talking about. Then from that, because that's your big wish list, right?
Right.
And then now this plan starts moving us into reality. What out of the big wish list is the highest priority for Douglas County or Lyon County? You heard Mr. Henderson say, we really want that project and we want to do it sooner because it's really important. We're having trouble with horses or something. And so what we'll do is say, what do we want staff, which for this area is Miss Norman and Mr. Martinovich, what do we want you to go find in federal funds? So they were talking about a specific one earlier, a FLAP grant. If it's not in these planning documents, we can't apply for those grants. And so that's what's really informing you as the public. We put these out for public comment to say, do we have the priorities correct? Are we picking the right projects? Should we make this project more important or that one? And then it comes here for us to look at the whole thing and say, this is the work we want the CAMPO staff to go try and fund. These are the projects that are of priority to us over the next 3 to 4 years. What's your job duties? It's a short little distilled option of that, but that tells Kelly that, oops, I see this grant and we want to do the one for the horses for Lyon County. There's an opportunity. We're going to spend the effort to apply for the grant because it takes a lot of energy to go after all this.
Are
too.
the grants from the federal government or NDOT?
It can be from both, depending on the way in which the federal government pushes the money down. Sometimes they push it to the state, and then the state gives it out to what she called MPOs, planning organizations. So some we get direct, and some we apply through the state. So it's all different
And none of the
ways.
projects are funded through city funds. It's all through grant money, right? No?
Yeah, these are for the federal.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if
Grants.
I may,
Yeah,
we're
more.
happy to have a conversation
Offline, too.
offline with more details if that would be
If you'd
certainly
like.
beneficial.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're so happy to have, thank you for coming to actually ask. I think we take for granted all the special initials too, right? That everyone just knows what all these initials are,
Yeah,
so,
and in general,
thank you.
we run out of money before we run out of projects.
yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why it's.
You could look at our wish list of projects, that's for darn sure, yeah. But thank you so much for coming and asking. We really appreciate it. Any other public comment? No? All right, with that, then I'll accept a motion.
I move to adopt CAMPO's federal fiscal year 2023 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program as presented.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you so much. Miss Norman, would you give him your contact information? Thank you so much for that. Great job, team. Okay, we're now on to agenda item number 6, which is our non-action items. Do we have a report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. A couple of items I wanted to provide information to this board. Last week, Kelly, Norman, and I attended the Clean Energy and Transportation Summit at the Pepper Mill in Reno, Thursday and Friday of last week. It was a really interesting conference, focused a lot on clean energy in all sectors across the state, but a lot of it was focused on transportation, alternative fuels, whether it's hydrogen or electricity. A lot of discussion about those fuel sources, not only about how to charge alternative vehicles, whether they're electric or hydrogen, but also about how do we make up for the loss of gas tax revenue. And there were a lot of discussions by folks from DC and other states who have implemented trial programs for a variety of options. So it was a really interesting conference. We're absorbing all of this information and seeing how and monitoring how It could be work to coordinated with NDOT or at our state legislature as they move forward with options. So it's just an interesting conference, and I certainly enjoyed attending. So just wanted to pass that along that, we're participating in those types of things to gather that information. We are also working on an update to our public participation plan. This is one of the other big 4 documents that MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, are required to do. The public participation plan sort of outlines that process for which and how we convey and inform and get information back from the public. So we're working with a consultant to do some analysis and research on kind of best practices following our COVID era and more virtual meetings. So we're working with that, and I anticipate items coming to this board here in the near future. So excited to get input on those items. We are working with NDOT, Kevin Berry and team, on a variety of studies. They've kicked off their US 395 corridor study. We're working on an agreement with NDOT for our US 50 corridor study that would go from I-580 out into Mount House. And so we're working on getting those agreements executed. NDOT's going to lead the US 395, and CAMPO's coordinating to lead the US 51, building on what we had done in downtown and William Street. So looking forward to getting those kicked off here. Updates would obviously come to the board as we need to. Other items, NDOT has also released their Transportation Alternatives Call for Projects. This is formerly the Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP, I think we've referred to it in the past. It's just a TA program now. This is the program that's funded a number of multi-use paths in the Carson City area, so that next year, as well as Safe Routes to School. CAMPO is looking at coordinating with NDOT on a grant submission to complete some additional work on US 50 as part of that feasibility study, sort of a planning grant. So there'll be more information on that going forward. That call just, I think, came out this week, I believe. So just trying to understand what those requirements are going to be and what we're going to chase. So more on that to come. And lastly, I just want to give a quick update. We've received a couple of applications for our 2 vacant positions. Marquise and Alex, as you mentioned, or as I mentioned last month, they're not there. So we're hoping to get more applicants. It's a little bit of a struggle to get some people right now. So I just wanted to give an update on that. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have any items from the board to share? Member, Vice Chair Novak.
Okay, the legislature started this week, and the alternative funding report is under Bill Draft 801. And there's some other, meetings starting out. I think there's another bill draft about wildlife crossings, and I saw one on the list for maybe automated enforcement in school zones. So again, they'll be around for, another couple of months, and we'll see how that turns out. Also saw that I think Federal Highway's annual Everyday Counts initiative, I think they're starting to have some meetings next week on that. That's some newer high-tech things they're usually letting everybody know about. And then our Nevada Transportation Conference is in May. And I think Chris is probably on the agenda for that one again. So that's all I got.
Anybody else? Wes? Just making sure. Okay.
Well, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to our final public comment. Is there any final public comment for CAMPO? CAMPO? Are you for CAMPO or RTC? Okay, this one's CAMPO. Okay, seeing none, then we are adjourned, and we'll come back at 5:30 for RTC to start. Thank you all for a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
going to call the Carson City Regional Transportation Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Schudy. Here. Member Dodson. Member Maloney.
Here.
Member Novak. A quorum's present.
Thank you so much. We're on agenda item 3, which is our public comment period for the Regional Transportation Commission. Do I have any public comment? Come on up, Dee Dee.
Good afternoon. My name is Dee Dee Formaster, and I'm here, of course, about accessibility and a couple of concerns about transportation. I had spoke with Chris in between, and he has promised that he'll take care of some of this, but every year, you guys give money to the senior citizens for bus passes. And I think that that should happen, and it's important, but the disabled community always gets left behind. And I had COVID at the time. You guys approached that subject. And so I did not make it here to this meeting
Thank you.
because I was so ill. And so I did want to mention that it's very vitally important that you don't forget about the disabled community when it comes to, bus passes. Like I went down to the Jack office and I had a client who is significantly disabled, and I needed a little yellow bus pass so that she could utilize the half price. And I gave them my card, I told them who I was, and they said, no, they absolutely would not give me those yellow cards, and that the man I needed to speak to wasn't here. And I said, look, can I just have one card? Because I have a client at my office. And they said no. And so they refused to give me any yellow cards. And I want you to know, and I bring this up quite often, that the Jack office is not on the bus system. So the closest bus stop is, I don't know, 5 blocks away. I'm not quite too sure. And a person with a disability getting off the bus and having to walk all that distance to get to the Jack office is, for a little yellow card, is absolutely ridiculous. When the disabled community comes to my office, and I could gladly give those out. And those folks get a measly, yes, $809 a month. And what's rent now? $850 a month for a motel room, basically. So let's be real. They need those little yellow cards. And if you guys would be kind enough to, and which Chris did mention, he would get me on that list to be able to write a grant for the disabled community, because it's difficult for them to get around. And it's difficult, really difficult, for them to get to the Jack office. And so I am more than happy to work as a liaison organization in between. And I'm more than willing to do whatever I need to do to make this an easy process for not only the Jack bus system, but also for my clients. And there's a couple other things I want to bring up right quick. Accessibility was horrible during the snow. And sidewalks were not cleared, walkways were not cleared. And I realized that I have heard rumblings that somebody is out checking on that accessibility. But again, please realize people in wheelchairs have a hell of a time. And I had clients walking, between the of course, the bus stop at Food Mart, and my office, which is over where there should be a bus stop, where advocates to end domestic violence is. We are there, and also the Dream Center, which is a major area for people to get food, low-income people. And that's a hell of a walk from Food Mart all the way out there. We need a bus stop desperately there. And, you know, clients were walking in the street. And I was absolutely horrified because I was afraid they were going to get hit on Highway 50. And speaking of hit on Highway 50, I have a client sitting in my car right now. It is a veteran who was hit twice going to work at Mound House. And he put all kinds of lights and everything on his bicycle. He was hit from behind, not once, but twice. The second time, he was knocked out and laid in the middle of the street there for about 20 minutes until he came to. And consequently, he quit his job in Mound House because he had been hit so many times. And he just couldn't get there any longer because of the fact that the bike lanes really are not marked well. And the green line that I bought up 5 years ago, really would like to see that green line on when you redo Highway 50, please put in the green line so that people know not to drive on that area where the bicyclists are and people walking. But I'm just concerned about accessibility in our community, and I don't want to see people dying. So God bless you. Thank you very much for all your hard work you put in every day. And I appreciate you giving me a moment to speak. Thank you.
Thanks, Dee Dee. Appreciate that. Mr. French?
I thank you. Hello. Mr. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada, chairwoman and commissioners and attorneys. First off, I'd like to suggest to the attorneys that they would please look up the plain language bill. I know it was October 13, but I can't think of the year right now. But if you could maybe sort of nudge some of the people to consider that, it would be great help to a lot of people that are still struggling. I had a form so that I could fill out to get about a court case, and it had a phrase. It looked like it was in Italian, not Italian, but Greek or maybe Latin. And I'm going, all I want is some information, and I can't read the document. I wasn't sure it was even in English, but I checked the other parts, and I don't think that's the way to approach your community. Whether it's in a business situation or in a legal situation or in a board of supervisor or commission. So I would like that considered. I also want to ditto on what Dee Dee suggested as far as accessibility to sidewalks. The ramps that they have designed very carefully for summer use are not very helpful during winter use. And if most of you have observed, some people push their snow out onto the sidewalk so that you really can't get around it. If they have a parking area, they'll push it up into the corner. So it's really forcing people out in the street. And so accessibility just to get to the lights, to press the button to get access, not just being able to get up on the sidewalk is tough. And then once you are in the sidewalk, the accessibility is very tenuous at best. I'd also like to suggest, if it's not already in consideration, that taxation in this city should include, if you're paying for tax on a gasoline, you pay for it on diesel, and I believe that we could use the revenue from electric cars. They're heavier than standard cars, and they do wear things out because of that extra weight. And as I walked here, I'm going, I took pictures of potholes. I used to have to fill them. Well, it's not have to. Part of my job was to fill potholes. And I've noticed that they weren't necessarily using a slurry. A slurry, it's sort of like a little connector between the bond areas. And I was going to talk to him about it, but I thought, that's not my place, and that I would just bring it up, that does help it last a little longer. And we use tampers, and we often ran over it with our trucks to make sure we got it down, but we always left it higher than the access or the street there. And I like to second the statement that individual made about making sure that the standards of fillers, after somebody's taken up for whatever purpose, a line for a gas or something to get to, that they replace the space that they've taken out of a street with the same quality and the same requirements as the original streets. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Do I have any other public comment? No? Thank you so much. Okay, then we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is approval of our minutes of January 11th, 2023. Does any commissioner have any changes to the minutes? I'll accept a motion for approval. Oh, you have a change?
I found one.
Go ahead. What you got?
Packet page 8, item 6A, talking about the East William Complete Streets Project. Third line from the end, 60% RTC review in March of 2023, not 2026. Like next month, we'll hear that.
Mm-hmm. We don't want to wait till 2026? Oh, we're going to try and get on that next month.
Try to
They're all,
sneak it
I
in.
can see a few staff going, no, 23.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
Commissioner
Okay.
Novak, I'll check the audio and fix that. I want to check the audio and then fix it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay. So I'll accept a motion for approval pending audio review. Are you making the motion, Ms. Maloney?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Thank you. We're now going to move on to agenda item 5A, discussion and possible action to certify the, for DOT, our mileage of our city public roads and identity and total mileage of the improved roads maintained for city purposes for the Nevada motor fuel tax distributions. I believe, Kelly, Norman, you're shifted slightly. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Norman, Transportation Planner, for the record. Annually, Carson City submits 2 road mileage certifications to NDOT. The first submission is for Carson City's total public road mileage, as seen on the screen. The city has 303.21 centerline miles of public roads, which includes 285.46 miles of paved roads and 17.75 miles of unpaved roads. This is also on Exhibit 1, packet page 15, for public roads. Public roads are publicly accessible roads that are maintained by Carson City. This total public road mileage is submitted to NDOT, verified, confirmed, or commented on. For example, a couple years ago, NDOT identified all the state-owned bridges within Carson City and asked staff to update accordingly. After analysis and confirmation, NDOT then sends the total public road mileage to the FHWA for highway safety funding purposes. The second submission is for Carson City's total motor fuel tax mileage. And this is on packet page 17 for a map. The NRS statute requires a public hearing in which roads maintained by the city are identified and presented. For a road to be eligible for fuel tax compensation, it must be classified as a type C or greater roadway, as defined by NDOT and the Legislative Committee for Local Government Taxes and Finance. Figure 2 on packet page 12 is a picture of type C, and I'm showing it on the screen as well. On this same page, figure 1 shows a type B road. So a type B roadway is eligible for public road mileage certification, but not motor fuel tax mileage. Carson City maintains 302.65 centerline miles for the purpose of motor fuel tax road mileage certification. Carson City submits the motor fuel tax mileage certification to NDOT annually. NDOT then qualifies the roadways, goes back and forth with us again, and then verifies again, submits the mileage to the state legislature. Carson City Engineering, the city's real property manager, the GIS department, community development, and the transportation staff confer on an ongoing basis on newly constructed or accepted roads, abandoned roads, or changes in the city's road maintenance obligations regularly. These changes are collected and updated in a road mileage geodatabase throughout the year by the city's transportation department to report the city's total respective road mileages accurately and efficiently. A majority of the changes seen in the 2022 total road mileage stems from the Little Lane, the Schultz Ranch, and the Silver Oak developments. And I just wanted to give a shout out too because Casey Smith, Assistant Chief Roadway Systems, our contact at NDOT, is here as well to help us with any questions. NDOT for this task every year has been just very responsive and communicative in responding to the types of roadways that do or do not or are not eligible for public and motor fuel tax mileage. So with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Does anybody have a question?
I got one. This is fine. I guess the only difference between one and the other is that it's part of Kings Canyon Road. It's a B and not a C. Is there any plan to upgrade that at all, or?
Portions of Kings Canyon are maintained by the Parks Department, so I'd have to confer with them. To my knowledge, there isn't anything specific on the books that would upgrade that to a different type of road.
Good. No, the rest looks fine. Thanks.
So I understand what you said about how you look to determine, so what was last year's mileage? And I probably should have called in earlier to ask you to be prepared for that, because one of the other potential methods is to validate. So when we accept the audit, our financial audit, one of the issues that's on there is the capitalization of assets, which includes roads. And so part of my question on this really started to watch the mileage here, yet I'm looking at $17 million added into our capital asset for roads. And I want to make sure that everything is tying out. And so just as for the future on this, if I can always have the prior year, and then if we can see the capitalization dollars that happened in the audit, because I just want to make sure that it's all matching up, right? So I looked at the money that was added in the audit, and I didn't think I saw enough road miles being added to the report, right? I'm like, well, wait a minute, 17 million, if I just pretend it's $1 million a mile. And so then I looked up the formula, and it's $5.50. Anyway, on what's capitalized and all that good kind of stuff. So I would just ask that in the future that we just make sure we tie across that particular item too, because I didn't hear you say the finance department with the capitalization of the road assets. And then can you, for me, or the public that might be listening, because I know they are, what a centerline mile means? So if I guess I want them to understand when the city is looking to repair roads, right? What does that mean to them? Do I say we have 302 miles to repair, or is that really double that? Or because I have to do both sides? I'm trying to get a feel for the public to understand what the big picture is. And so where you have the Save Our Streets website and thing that you're working on. So can you explain for the public, what's a centerline mile?
Centerline mile is the definition of a road line digitization. So in the center of a street. And so roads.
If I'm a 2-lane or a 4-lane road,
One line,
It's one line.
that's only considered one line.
one line, the center line, a single line down the center of the road.
So again, it's a what I want to do is make sure the public understands this does not mean the number of miles of paved road that we're maintaining. This is a center
This
line.
is, there are, as Kelly mentioned earlier, there's 285 point something center line miles of paved roads in
Right.
Carson City, but that's different than a lane miles
Right.
of road.
That's what I'm
or
getting
area
to.
of road or square footage of pavement. Those are much larger numbers. This is just pure, if you drive down the road once, down the middle of the road, that's the mileage you would get, that center of the road.
Okay. So whether it's 2 lanes, 4 lanes, 6 lanes,
Does
whatever the
this-
center of the road is, that's the count.
That's what we're reporting here, that's center line only.
Yeah, and so I just think it's very important that the public has a larger scope of what this means, because you would look at this and say, well, what is the problem? You only need to do 300 miles. I'm like, no, we don't. We have a ton more than that. It's like 800 and some odd lane miles or something too. And so I just want to make sure at any opportunity when we're speaking to the public, any of us, that the lingo doesn't get in the way of the realities. All right, and so I just bring that up for just general comment. I think for everyone, right? For you too, Denny, you're exactly right. You know, they're not going to understand this, but I have people going, well, what do you mean you have a $21 million gap in doing the neighborhood roads? Oh my goodness, goodness, goodness. But when you look at this document, you're going to get a different impression than when I say what the lane miles are. And so thank you for helping to do that. And then again, if next year you could just add just a cross-check
Okay.
with the finance side to make sure all the roads were lined up with everything.
We can
Because I
double,
know
we
that
can
that was the
coordinate
major.
with, we can coordinate with finance.
Yeah, she'll love it.
Okay.
Yeah, Mrs. Benaboo is gonna go, oh, great. Yeah. Miss Maloney.
I think I know the answer, but just for the record, Kelly, if our road miles go up 100% this year, does that mean that we get twice as much funding from gas tax? Or if it goes down, say by half the mileage, do we get half as much gas tax? What is the fiscal implication of this certification?
That's an interesting question. I think that the Legislative Committee for Local Government Taxes and Finance has a formula that they use that contains road mileage, the area of the city, and a number of other entities. And it has to factor into, the road mileage is a factor in that formula, not the whole formula. I don't know what the exact formula. I don't know if anybody else has any more details
I
about
do
that.
not, I do
but-
not know the formula, but to Kelly's point, I don't think it's that black and white, where it's, we get twice as many roads, that means twice as much funding, half as many roads. It's part of the equation where more roads mean more funding, less roads mean less funding, but it's not that black and white.
Well, and it also depends. I used to do that job. I used to distribute that money. So it is a 4-way formula that tests, but you could obtain that spreadsheet. It's very small. It's set once a year. It goes in there and what's your assessed value, populations. Anyway, it has a set formula. So it also depends on what everyone else is doing in comparison to what you're doing. So if your roads are exponentially growing and everyone else is staying static, then your answer is yes, we're gaining. But we tend to, as a state, kind of go together. Everybody's growing at the same ratio. Everybody added 2% to their roads or whatever. So, but it's an easy little form you could download and just send out as information so you can see it, because it's just a pure formula. Except for we get some of our own local stays here, but yeah. Anyway, it's fun. Motor vehicle privilege tax. It's a great one. Anyone else? Is there any public comment on this item? Sure. Could get dangerous. We might throw some more words at you.
My name's Jediah Holler again. On your comment on capitalization on assets and the data that's available regarding the miles of road, I think it would be very important and actually beneficial for there to be consideration of including data for lane miles, right? Just
Yes.
for the simple fact that wider roads are more expensive to maintain for the city. And so I would like there to be some consideration of processing that data so that decisions could be made better in future infrastructure projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. Is there any other? Don't see any other public comments. I'll accept a motion. Ms. Maloney?
I move to certify 1, the total mileage of Carson City public roads as presented, and 2, the identity and mileage of roads maintained by the city as presented.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We're now going to move on to, hold on, all of this going at the same time. On to agenda item 5B, which is discussion and possible action regarding contract number 233-00244 for Construction Materials Engineers, Inc. to perform material testing services for the Colorado Street Corridor Project for a total not to exceed $89,360. Brian, are you going to give us just a brief?
Yeah, Brian Byrne, transportation engineer. Real brief. This is the material testing contract for the Colorado Street that was awarded last month. And so with that, if you guys have any questions, I can answer those.
Does anybody have any questions? Nope. Is there any public comment on this contract? Okay, I'll accept a motion for approval.
I will do. I move to approve the contract as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. We're now going to move on to agenda item 5C, which is discussion and possible action regarding contract 233-00288 for Loomis and Associates to perform the civil engineering services for our District 5 Winnie Lane reconstruction project for a total not to exceed amount of $84,820. Brian?
Yeah, this contract, it will include the survey, geotechnical, and design for our District 5 Winnie Lane project. So any other questions, happy to answer.
And was discussed in the earlier tip. The plan just for the individuals in the audience that are sitting. So now you see we're gonna fund one of the projects that we discussed earlier. And I think Commissioner Schutte had mentioned, are we changing scope on this project? Is that what I heard? That
The limits were slightly different than what was previously kind of outlined in the tip. So this is the district project from Carson Street to Mountain Street.
I'll clarify
Yeah,
if
why
I
are we,
may,
what
Mayor.
what
So
changed?
the question earlier, if I understand, during the CAMPO item 5B was in regards to the change in the project scope. And so the previous tip, the fiscal year 21 through 25 tip, had a Winnie Lane project included in it that included a longer range of project window. When CAMPO approved their tip earlier tonight under 5B, that tip included a scope less than was in the previous tip document than was adopted tonight. So what this item is doing, it is essentially the design of the project that was approved in the adopted CAMPO tip at under 5B earlier tonight. The scope of the project is, as we've discussed at this board last summer when we identified all of our District 5 projects, this is that same project moving forward into design.
Did any part of this change because we did some things in our safe routes to school? We were able to accomplish some of the changes
Yes, so
on
one of the
Winnie
things.
Lane under our safe routes to school plan, if you right?
Exactly.
Okay,
What was
so,
originally intended for our District 5 Winnie Lane would have included school zone beacons. However, following that school zone beacon project, we no longer needed to do those as part of this scope of project
Okay, that
work.
makes-
So we're able to eliminate that. Part
Oh,
of
and
one
the
of the
slight change in
factors.
scope.
One of the
is-
factors.
Right, okay. See, I had to put my hat back on there. What did we do there? Somehow that project. I can't remember these. Does any member have a question? Certainly. Mr. Dotson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about the compensation on the contract amount. On packet page 50, the compensation in item 5 is listed as a time and materials contract for the entire, all the tasks. But when you look at the Exhibit A, tasks 1 through 4, as shown on packet page 70, are described as fixed fees. So, you know, basically the only item that's a time and materials contract, according to Exhibit A, is Task 5. I'm just wondering if we should amend that, the contract itself to make that clarification.
Yes, Adam Tully, Deputy District Attorney. Yes, you're correct. That's a change we should make.
Thank you.
In 5.1, we're going to change the wording. We'll allow the district attorney's office to do the conforming change. That's the general way, so we don't have to try and do language on the fly. We just allow them to do the conforming change to meet that requirement. And he might write it fast enough, but that's really the easiest fix is a conforming change. Is there anybody catch anything else on there? Okay, is there any public comment? Mr. French? Exhibit, just change it to exhibit.
Thank you, Chair and Board. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. I haven't been able to find the supportive material here, but several of the things on this agenda, I'm thinking I must have the wrong agenda. Could I have somebody just check for me? Is it possible? Would you mind that?
Just let me conform it. Yes. Oh, yeah, following fixed fees. Mhm. Okay, you're good, Denny? No problem. Just to make sure, is there any other? Okay, Mr. Tully, would you like us to do a conforming, or do you already have it? Because it could be based upon time and materials or fixed fees. We could just
Yeah,
add or
without-
fixed fee in 5.1.
Yeah, I can make a change
We'll do it.
that'll capture the intent that the compensation be paid for scope of work unless time and materials is specified in the proposal is the other method of calculating payment.
Okay. So the motion for this one would be that you move to approve the contract, allowing the district attorney's office to conform the required changes for time and materials versus fixed fee. And I'll make that motion if you'd like. So take a
I'll second.
second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you so much. Okay, well, now we're gonna move on to agenda item 5D, discussion of possible action regarding amendment number 4 to contract 1516 -018 for Ecolane USA to provide transit service software and support for jump around transit services operations through January 1, 2026 for $6,987.50 annually for not to exceed $20,962.50 for the amendment's 3-year term and a new total not to exceed $123,323.50. We've got to make sure the 50 cents is in there. Okay, so again, this one is just an amendment. Does any member have a question on the amendment?
I have a
A disclosure. Sorry, go ahead.
NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. Again, does any member have a question? Ms. Maloney?
Chris is gonna be mad.
Please not.
I didn't catch this earlier, and then I saw it right before the meeting. On packet page 80, the contract term of the original contract, 1516-018, paragraph 3, it indicates that the contract's effective from 2015 to 2017 with 2 additional 2-year maintenance options, which means 17 to 19 was the first one, and 19 to 21 was the second one. Are we allowed to amend it again? I apologize. I should have brought this earlier.
A couple of things to, well, if Adam wants to jump in, I'm going to default.
Yeah, Deputy DA, this is more of an Adam question.
Mr.
So
Tully.
yes, because you are a governing body that's capable of contracting, this could be done via amendment. It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
Thank you.
Because we're amending the contract term itself is the amendment.
I would like to add 2 things to this, if I may, Madam Chair. First of all, I wanted to bring everyone's attention to late material for item 5D. This was provided, handed out and provided. There's tables back there. This is a lobbying form that was required. It's required for contracts with the FTA over $100,000. So I wanted to make sure that get included. It's for the vendor to sign. In this case, Ecolane USA would sign that. I'm just going to amend that and attach that to the amendment that goes with that. The second thing I wanted to note, and I think this is something we should include in our motion, is that I'm currently coordinating with the FTA regarding this particular amendment. I have a meeting with them on Friday morning to make sure we're all on the go on this. So I think I would make a recommendation at the discretion of the district attorney to say amend the motion to have it contingent upon FTA approval. I anticipate they'll give us approval, but if they don't, I don't want to put this board in that position. So I just want to bring that up for you to consider as part of your motion.
Thank you. Let me ask something else.
Otherwise, happy to answer other questions.
So one of the questions, and I'm sure you've checked it, or I'm hoping so, but I'm going to assume this one does include federal dollars. This is a yes for federal dollars.
Yes, for federal dollars.
And so the bidding requirements, oftentimes the scopes and the contract terms follow the bidding requirements for federal contracts. And so you have validated that this one does not need to go out to bid, that it can have an additional,
We are confirming
Amendment.
that with the FTA.
okay. So if the FTA indicates no, then this contract will not be signed and you will go out to bid.
Correct.
I'm trying to remember my thresholds. I'm like, oh, CFR 200, at this dollar amount, you have to do this funny thing, and at this one, you got to do that. But,
The bidding threshold for the FTA is $150,000.
so we're
So
still
we're
at
still below that.
123,
Right.
right, for the total.
We're below that.
I'm okay with potentially an approval that adds pending approval of the FTA, right? So that if the staff doesn't have that approval, the contract's not awarded. Okay, so let me ask, is there any public comment? No? All right, so then again, if you want to make a motion to approve amendment number 4 with the condition of FTA approval. Is that your?
I'll make a motion to approve Amendment 4 as presented with the addition of the lobbying form, late material, and contingent upon FTA approval.
I second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you so much. All these little technicalities. That's why we have all those little check boxes for those in the public of it's this kind with a that kind, or it's a this with a that, because all the rules are different. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to agenda item number 6, which is our non-action items. Mr. Martinovich, your manager's report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just going to start with this, the transit and FTA financing and grant coordination is very challenging. There is a lot to learn and there's a lot to understand. So I appreciate your patience with me and my staff and everybody here as we try to learn this. And Alex was really good at it, and we're making sure we're trying to get that person filled and cover us along the way. So appreciate that. First thing I wanted to note, anticipate that in an upcoming Board of Supervisors meeting, an update on our roadway funding, Preserve Carson City Roads initiative. Look for that in the near future. In addition, with unfortunate news here, Carson City was not awarded a Safe Streets for All grant. We applied for that through this board back in the summer when there was, I think, approximately $2.9 billion in implementation requests and only $500 million available. So the pool of projects was massive, and the amount of funding to fund those projects was very small in comparison. We're looking at the next potential call for projects and thinking about our strategy for how we can be successful, and maybe it's a different package, maybe it's a different planning program versus an implementation, but we're thinking through that. We're actually going to probably coordinate with the Washoe Tribe on some potential combination there for that grant program going forward. We are scheduled to do a debrief with the U.S. Department of Transportation to see how we can improve and what we can do. So unfortunate news, but hopefully in the long run, good can come out of that. So staff are also working on, in coordination with other departments, the Engineering Department of Public Works, development of an electric vehicle charging station policy. We're looking at a variety of factors, including potential funding through NV Energy and their transportation electrification called ERTEP. I don't remember the acronyms off the top of my head, but that agency, NV Energy, has $100 million set aside for transportation electrification. We're looking at how we can potentially take advantage of some of that and what works and what doesn't work and where in Carson City. So we're working on that policy with other members of Public Works and the engineering side and the city engineer on that. Similarly, in the past, this board has heard some discussions about scooter share or bike share or other ride share type programs. I've had some recent meetings with Bird Scooter regarding some updates to how they operate and some of the changes that they've implemented following what they've learned in Reno and South Lake Tahoe. This board a couple of years ago recommended a moratorium to the Board of Supervisors I just wanted to pass the option along. If there was interest in getting an update on any of that, I'd be happy to. And if not, then I'm happy to continue the course. I just wanted to let that out, let this board know, as there's been a lot of turnover, new members of this board. It's something we think about. We get a lot of calls and information like, hey, can we do this? And it's in a learning phase. There's a lot to learn about a scooter share program. So not ready to like roll something out, but I just wanted to make the board aware that, you know, there's changes and development in this field as industry gets better. So background information. Lastly, I mentioned last week, the William Street, or last month, the William Street 60% design is being finalized. There was a public meeting last night. I think there were 42, 44. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. It was held at the sheriff's office. It was a good turnout, good lively discussion from the group. And we'll be bringing that item up for the board's discussion and input next month in March. So that is my manager's report. Thank you.
Your street operations report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Street operations report, item 6B. This includes 2 months, as we weren't able to get last month's due to the weather we were having at that time. So this is for November and December of 2022. I do want to note a change to the November report. The line item that says potholes repaired, I conferred and confirmed with our street operations crews that there were actually 43 potholes in that column in that month. So there were 43 potholes completed in that one. I've seen the January number. It's well over, I think it's close to 200, 192 or 3 or 5 or something like that. So
790 to go.
there's
Oh,
probably,
sorry.
I don't know what
Yeah.
February is going to hold, but
Yeah.
they're out there. They're doing a number of potholes, but I'm happy to answer any questions on the street operations report. I just wanted to highlight that one.
Oh, may I ask a question? Because I got it on the brine mixture applied. I had a question from the public that's, what streets, where do we use salt and where do we not use salt? And if you don't know it, you can bring it back next time, but
I will bring it back next time. I do
that was a
not
general
know the
question that I got
process.
from the public is, why aren't you salting and protecting us and da-da-da-da-da? And I'm like, I think they put it in the proper places, but if you can bring just back a general report in your manager's report next time,
Will do.
that would be great. Because there's a lot of brine here for the fact that people think we didn't do any. I'm like, I don't know. 8,213 gallons. Not as much in December, but I'm gonna second guess what January looks like, right? Yeah, so thank you. Is there anything else that anybody has to share with members? Anybody? Mr. Dotson, nothing's on your mind?
No, I had a question about the brine. I was a little confused, but the November, December total.
Yeah,
cleared
the
that up.
December seemed light.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I will bring back more information, but I do know one of the things that they consider, Brian, is the type of storm that's coming. And so if it's going to rain first, it's not something that you necessarily want to brine right away if it just washes off. So there's a lot of considerations that go into when and how and where we brine.
Thank you so much. Okay. Then we will move to final public comment. Is there any final public comment before the RTC? Going. All right, with that, thank you all for a great meeting. We're adjourned. Woohoo.